Well, what would happen if you called on God for help and he actually appeared?
The scenario is played out in a new novel called The Stranger in the Lifeboat by Mitch Albom, who we're so excited is joining us now. Welcome, Mitch.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
I love your parents' advice, and I'm quoting here, don't expect your life to finish here. There's a big world out there. Go out and see it. Now, that's great advice.
Yeah, and I've tried to follow it for the last few decades.
Mitch, I want to get into the book, but I got to say, I grew up in Michigan, so you were sort of a fixture there. I remember when Tuesdays with Morrie first came out, and you've done so many amazing things for the Detroit area and also your orphans in Haiti. So you're just a really good guy, and we thank you for that, and we thank you for your amazing stories.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that.
So tell us about the book. There's God actually appears. It's what would happen if God actually appeared, and it really tests your faith, right?
Well, it's someone who claims to be God. So there's this luxury yacht with lots of rich people on it from around the world. It explodes mysteriously, and everybody's killed except 10 people, half of whom are the guests and half of whom are like the staff. They make it to a life raft. 3 days go by. Nobody comes searching for them. They're running out of food and water. There's sharks out in the ocean. They're desperate. They're crying out. And suddenly they see a body just floating, bobbing up and down in the water, and they pull it into the boat. And it's this young guy, kind of nondescript, average-looking guy, and they pepper him with questions. There's no response. Finally, one of the passengers says, well, thank the Lord we found you. And he says, I am the Lord. And the book follows what happens as the days go by and whether they choose to believe if he is who he says he is, because he says, I can only save you if you all believe I am who I say I am at the same time. And of course, some of them just think he's this kook who banged his head. He doesn't look like God. He gets hungry. He gets thirsty. He falls asleep a lot. And it explores the idea of, do we accept help when it comes from the universe or from God or whatever you believe in, when it doesn't look exactly like we want, doesn't come exactly when we want, and are we still willing to believe that help is out there and things will get better?
I love that. I mean, just even the dedication. I love you put to Janine, Trisha, and Connie, who show me every day the stunning power of belief. So it's an inspiring book, but I'm curious, what made you decide to write it, or where did the idea come from?
Well, you know, the last book I wrote was called Finding Chica, and that was a true story about one of the orphans from our orphanage in Haiti, where, as you pointed out, I'm there every month, and she was 5 years old when she developed a brain tumor, and we brought her to America thinking, well, we'll get it operated on, she'll go back, and she never went home. It was extraordinarily serious. We ended up adopting her, and she became our daughter for 2 years as we traveled around the world trying to get her cured. And finally she died, and when she died at age 7, I was extremely angry at the universe, at God, everything. How can there be a kind, benevolent presence who isn't kind to a 7-year-old girl? And I had to work through a lot of that. And so a lot of the questions that I had for the universe or for God end up in The Stranger in the Lifeboat amongst all the people there, including that question, you know, well, why did you take the person I loved? There's actually a moment where one of the passengers says to this God character, why did you take my wife? He's crying. And the God character says, well, I know that you cry when the people you love on this earth leave it, but I can assure you that they're not crying. And for me, you know, that's how I've had to kind of deal with it, you know, to know that I may miss our little girl and cry for her, but she's not crying where she is. So a lot of the questions that I've asked in my life and struggled with faith or belief, I end up putting in the mouths of these characters, and they get to pose them to this guy who may or may not be who he says he is. You have to read the book to figure that out.
I know you've sold 40 million books worldwide. You just sold 40 million in 2 because Kara and I got the book and we can't wait to read it.
Thank you. Okay. Appreciate that.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Mitch.
All right, there it is. Mitch Albom, The Stranger
Pleasure.
in the Lifeboat. What a great holiday gift. It's you can find it online and in stores now.